I'm Chewy Mew, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the ToyBiz Spider-Man Classics Secret Identity Spider-Man with Peter Parker disguise, voice cracks not included. So I never saw this figure as a kid, so I didn't know it existed until I saw it in a video in 2016 by Glenn Webb as part of his Confessions of an eBay-aholic series. And so ever since then I knew I wanted it, and I just never found it on eBay for cheap, so I just never bought it until I got it as a Christmas gift from my mom last year. So shout out to my mom for this. And also this is way too hot and I can't breathe and I can't see. So here we go. Let's do this.
Why be easy when you can just die?
This was sold at KB Toys for $7.99. Spoilers, that's a very good deal for this figure.
The jerk charged me more for it.
You get a logo of the figure of the Spider-Man Classics logo, which looks like the 90s cartoon, and then Secret Identity Spider-Man with Peter Parker disguise. Here's the back of the packaging, and it's your kind of typical ToyBiz style packaging there, the characters in the top. And then you get a read-up here, which is just sort of a generic Spider-Man kind of read-up. You get a gimmick here, or get an explanation of the gimmick, which, you know, in case you don't know how to play with a toy, they like to tell you here on the back.
Let's get this bad boy open, but I have already taken it out so it no longer has those twist ties wrapped around it. Those things are the absolute worst. Imagine being a little kid in a car and you're trying to open these up. The Peter Parker head sculpt, arms, and legs are all in the front tray. The rubber clothing accessories are stored in the second tray behind the first one. Yeah, ToyBiz gave you so much stuff, it required 2 plastic trays to contain it.
I wish Hasbro would do that.
So here is Spider-Man out of the packaging with all his accessories in the back. And let's go ahead and take a look at him. The red is this sort of a darkish colored cherry red. And this is the thing I point out sometimes, and the thing that bugs me, specifically with Hasbro, is that unpainted sections of plastic just look like cheapy plastic. Say, for example, Sinister Six Spider-Man is painted throughout. He does have red, and the red is painted with a matte finish, so it doesn't look super glossy and shiny. Here we have the ToyBiz 90s Chameleon, and you can see how glossy and reflective the plastic is compared to him. And this figure does have it a little bit on the red and definitely on the blue, but I feel like for some reason it works here. It doesn't stand out, it doesn't look too weird. Part of the reason it helps as well is how cleanly the web lines are done in. Look at that. The web lines are painted incredibly clean, and one thing that ToyBiz does, or did some of the time, for example on Sinister Six Spider-Man and on Snapshot Spider-Man, was the web lines weren't painted in deliberately. Like, they didn't have the machine paint in the web lines. Instead, they added a black wash to it, which is filled in the details and filled in the web lines, and also added to that sort of dark ToyBiz shading the figures usually had. It's very prominent on Sinister Six Spider-Man, where the blue is a very dark navy looking color. And on this one, that's not the case. And I think it's kind of good they painted it this way, because it still looks very clean, and it also doesn't stand out too much with the blue. And speaking of blue, the blue is this sort of light kind of color, and it has some of this sort of darker muted gray shading, and for some reason on the butt, it's insanely prominent, along with the crotch, which just looks very strange. It's very subtle here on the inner side of the arm and on the ribs. It's almost not very noticeable on the ribs. Also, it's red plastic that they had to paint blue, so it doesn't look like cheapy plastic, you know what I mean? But then the legs here, so the thighs and then the shin area does have the unpainted look to it, because it's just molded in blue plastic. Unlike the red, I feel like the blue looks a little bit strange. I wish they would have just painted it matte or something to make it look a little bit better. Take a look at the head sculpt here. The web lines are actually painted with a wash, so you can see some parts it's not very clean in it, and then the head is overall slightly darker than the body, but it's not very noticeable. It still looks good. The eyes are also painted pretty well. The black outline is done very good, and the white is also painted very cleanly. In between the eyes, you can see there's no web lines that are sculpted in. There's a spider logo on the chest. It's one of those cool logos that doesn't have any sort of any web lines going through it. Just has one web line going straight through the middle, and it looks really cool. Here's the back logo, and it's not painted the best. It looks like the paint was applied a little bit too far to the left, and it's kind of crooked. It's not a big deal, as you can't really tell unless you're looking at it this close, which you're probably not going to be. Unfortunately, mine does have a weird paint blemish on there, and that happened when I took it out of the packaging. Somehow one of the twist ties was stuck to it, and then it just peeled the paint off when I took it off. Same thing with that little dot right there. And speaking of some QC issues, mine does have some paint chip on the back of his arm. And right here on the body, there's some blue paint that got onto the red. I don't know if it's just mine or if it's all of them. Is his left shoulder here, or it does have the sculpted red section painted blue, which is kind of weird. Same thing on the back as well, but the red arm looks kind of fine. So I bought another blank body on eBay so I could have him permanently in Spider-Man mode. You can see this arm does have the web lines and red section painted properly. On the back, it lines up as well. So on mine, It actually is just a QC issue. The Peter Parker version, he's dressed like a teenager and he has the Ultimate Spider-Man style head sculpt. And Ultimate Spider-Man is like a 15 or 16-year-old, so he's not like a grown man yet. His body's not going to look like some hyper-developed, grown-up, ripped-looking Spider-Man. And the sculpt kind of reflects that. He's not crazy ripped. Like you can see, he's still a six-pack there. It's hard to see on the camera, but it's like very subtle. You can see like the top of the line there. The other one is right there, and then the bottom is there. You can barely see the six-pack lines. The ribs are pretty prominent, though. Biceps and triceps are not the buffest. On the inside, you can see his muscles there again as well. Pectorals are very subtle. They're not bulging out, but they're still there. Back is pretty muscular. And for some reason, his gluteus is crazy well-defined. That's kind of weird. And the thighs are also very muscular. This isn't really an issue, but it's the thing I figured I'd point out, is that his thighs look too muscular compared to his upper body. Like, his thighs should be way skinnier to kind of go with the arms. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the articulation on this figure in Spider-Man mode. So the head rotates all the way around. You can't look up, he just kind of wiggles and it doesn't hold its position. The arms rotate all the way around, go all the way up. You have a rotation in the bicep that is full range. You have a single bend in the elbow that is just about 90 degrees, and then you have rotation here in the wrist. I would have liked if this figure had a hinge in the wrist, so you could at least do like the angled web shooting hand. Rotation here in the waist, and unfortunately there's nothing in the upper torso. The legs kick forward all the way, and if you kick them out to the side, they go up pretty high. They don't go back at all, and you can do full-on splits, which that's pretty cool. A single bend in the knee, and then your rotation here in the boot. The ankle goes all the way forward and all the way back. And yeah, so obviously I'd like for this figure to have articulation on par with like Superposable Spider-Man 2 figure, but I think just due to the gimmick, it probably can't have it. But obviously I'd want him to have this amount of articulation. You know, that'd be optimal, but all I would really want for this figure in addition would be like a thigh swivel or something, so you could just adjust his legs and rotate them. Pretty much all you're going to have is a variety of arm positions and slightly different stances. I think it's good enough for what it is. It's meant to just be a Peter Parker figure that could be turned into Spider-Man. Okay, so it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for, and that is turning this guy into Peter Parker. So taking this stuff apart is pretty easy. The head is just pop it off. This piece here is a bit loose on this. Oops. So I feel like if I pull it wrong, I could potentially break it, so I just got to pull it straight out. The arms pop off pretty easily, just a simple peg. The boots are a little bit tricky, but you just kind of have to wiggle them side to side, and then they pop out. And for the sake of the rest of this, I bought another blank body of the Spider-Man on eBay, so that way I can have one permanently Peter Parker and one of them permanently Spider-Man. And if you look here, this peg here is loose. Can't really tell on camera, but it's loose, and this one is tighter, which is kind of weird, and they're different colors, so that's kind of strange. I just wanted to talk about the name on the package, which I think is kind of weird. This is called Secret Identity Spider-Man with Peter Parker disguise. What makes it sound like this is Spider-Man, and he dresses up as Peter Parker so they won't know he's Spider-Man, when in reality it's the opposite, where he's Peter Parker and he dresses up as Spider-Man so they won't know he's Peter. I think what they should have called it was Secret Identity Peter Parker with Spider-Man costume. And the figure displayed in the packaging would be Peter, and you turn him into Spider-Man. So here's Spider-Man in Peter Parker mode. And I gotta say, I think ToyBiz nailed it. Like, it looks so good. The rubber parts look like they honestly could be plastic. Like, if you saw this from a distance, you would just think it's like some sort of pre-posed action figure, because how well this looks. The sculpting on it is great. One thing I will say is, unfortunately, if you leave this guy on a shelf next to a light, it does start collecting dust. So mine has a bunch of like dust particles on it, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm probably gonna like wash it and like put it somewhere so dust doesn't get on it too much. But the rubber parts, they match the color of the plastic so well. If you look at the torso part here, that's the rubber, it matches the shoulder incredibly well. Like, even these match identically pretty much, but you're never gonna see that considering this would technically be his Spider-Man boots, because he puts the shoes over top of the Spider-Man boots. But it just looks so well. Look at the wrinkling and detail on the arms. Obviously this is going to look good because it's sculpted plastic. But on the hoodie, these wrinkles look incredibly well. If we take the backpack off so we can admire the details more. See the details there on the sides of the arms. The sort of like loose, baggy, wrinkly part of the outfit just looks so good. The little like stitch seam part there going down to the arm on both sides looks well. The hoodie, you know, it would be crazy if you could actually put the hoodie on this guy, but you can. It's sculpted on. And the hoodie strings there, if you turn his head back, the collar piece, which also looks really well. The arms don't fall off easy, by the way. Like, if you shake it, the body parts don't fall off. Like, you do have to put force to take them out. They're not gonna, like, they don't pop off too easily. But it looks great, and the pants look great as well. Unfortunately, just due to this being rubber and rotating the waist, you can see how the waist it rubs against the hoodie part. It does peel off the plastic on the belt. It was painted this brown color, which the belt was done. Even the belt loops had paint. And look, speaking of belt loops, look how good the details on this are. The belt buckle, the little straps for each of the belt loops, the belt holes on it, everything looks great. The zipper looks well done. Not the zipper, that part where the zipper is supposed to be. The pockets look good. The back pockets as well look great. Pretty much my only issues as far as the clothing is these pants look really wrinkly. Like up here they're not too wrinkly, but then down here they get like super wrinkly. And it looks kind of weird. It kind of looks like he's wearing pants that are too long for him, and so he's like pulling them up at his like knees so that the pants don't fall down. It looks kind of strange. It looks good. The detail on it is great. Even the little line here, the seam going down the side, it looks great. I wish it was like a little less wrinkly on the lower parts of the legs. And my other issue with the legs here is if we do the splits and we take a look here, you can see it has a lot of a sort of brownish black wash detail to it. I know they're trying to go for like this comic book style like shading and like dark outlines characters have and stuff. But on this figure, it just looks dirty. It looks like he was like changing the oil in a car and got all over his pants. And unfortunately that continues on to the shoes, where the soles of his shoes and the laces are supposed to be white, but ToyBiz put so much crazy shading or like so much wash on it that it looks like the shoes are just like covered in mud. And it looks kind of bad. Honestly, I'm probably going to see if I could find a way to just remove some of this brown paint and maybe just repaint them white to make them look better. Because for me, that kind of detracts from the look. The backpack is another weak element of it. To the best of my knowledge, it's like molded rubber in this sort of green teal color. And then they have the pouches here painted yellow. And they look pretty good. The pouches are done nicely. The zipper's there as well. But then the yellow line that goes around sort of like the zipper, the seam of the backpack, looks kind of terrible, honestly. That zipper looks good as well. The handle up here on the top and that little backpack piece. I don't know the name. I don't know backpack anatomy. The straps are also painted nicely. Just this yellow seam that goes along here just looks kind of bad. The backpack is a solid chunk of rubber, meaning it's kind of heavy. I hope it doesn't make the figure fall down. Alright guys, so there's a part when I said I'm going to set him down and he falls down, but he won't fall down now. White skin color here, which it's painted pretty nicely. Actually, all of these skin color parts are molded in the skin color, and then they just have the other colors painted on top. And his body, like you can see is on his arms, has like a tanner, orangish kind of color applied to it. And sometimes ToyBiz would put shading on human skin, and it just looks weird. Like Electra, it just looks like she has discolored parts of skin. You can see the web shooter there. It's done very nicely. It's painted this silver color with this sort of black wash in between them. And just to see how nice the detail is on this, they painted the two little buttons for his web shooter to press, and they're painted very, very cleanly. No, they're not perfect, but they still look phenomenal. Look how good that looks. That's very well done. The head sculpt is another one of the figure's, I would say, weaker elements. So the head sculpt, it's not bad. So the hair, first off, the hair is done pretty nicely. It's a dark brown color, and it has a sort of like blackish wash done to it. And it looks pretty nice. It looks very good. The ears look good. The nose looks pretty good. Eyebrows look pretty good. And then unfortunately, the lips and the eyes are the problem. Like, the eyes are painted well. As far as the actual paint, it looks good. It's just that this eye is looking up. It's looking up a little bit and a little far to his right. So that would be our left. And that looks a little bit strange. And then his lip, his bottom lip is just, it looks like he's like sticking his lip out. And then it's colored and it looks kind of weird. It looks like he's like a swollen lip. What I might try doing after this review is I might try find a way to remove the paint. And then I might repaint it again a very subtle color. I might just leave it unpainted. And it would look pretty good. And the eyes, I can't repaint eyes like that. That's too detailed for me. But I think that sculpt does look good. And if you have them from a distance like this, it doesn't look too bad. I do have one last gripe, and it's not really a big deal. And that is that you can't bring his arms down any lower. The backpack doesn't really hinder it. It's just the design of the figure that the arms don't go down any farther than that. So now let's go over the articulation for Peter. So the head rotates all the way around. He can't really look up or down. He has slightly more range than Spider-Man, but it's practically nothing. Rotation here in the arm. The arms go up all the way. And surprisingly, the backpack doesn't impede the articulation. The worst that could happen is the arm falls off. Rotation here in the bicep, single bend in the elbow that is slightly better than 90-degree range. You get a rotation here in the wrist, a rotation here in the waist as well, and it does kind of mess up the pants a little bit. The legs kick forward all the way, except they kind of go down with the pants, unfortunately, and a single bend in the knee, then a rotation here in the boot, and hinge in the ankle that goes that far forward and goes that far back. So just about on par with Spider-Man's articulation, just slightly worse hip range. And because everybody loves size comparisons, here he's next to the ToyBiz Urban Legends box set Spider-Man, Century 6 Spider-Man, Spider-Man Classic Series 1 Spider-Man, and Snapshot Spider-Man. Here he is next to ToyBiz's unofficial Ultimate Spider-Man figure called ToyBiz Street Fighting Spider-Man. Here's a head swap between these two, and it looks kinda terrible. Peter with the Street Fighting Spider-Man, the Hasbro Spider-Man Trilogy Black Costume Spider-Man, and the ToyBiz Marvel Legends Onslaught Build-A-Figure Wave Unmasked Green Goblin. Peter with Wrestler Peter from Spider-Man 1. Here he's next to the other Ultimate Spider-Man themed figures that I have. We have Ultimate Lizard, Ultimate Hydro Man, Ultimate Rhino, and Green Goblin. Here he's next to the other 4 figures that are in the wave along with him. Again, Ultimate Rhino, Cyber Spider-Man, and Symbiote Spider-Man. Peter Parker with those same characters. And there's the retro Hasbro Marvel Legends Peter Parker along with the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker from Spider-Man 1. And just for the heck of it, here he is next to himself. And here they are next to my first ever Spider-Man figure. Alright guys, so I was trying to record the last part of the video, and then my dog got on the couch, so sorry guys, it's over. And I'm glad I just finally have it. Just the gimmick of it being a Spider-Man, we could turn into a Peter Parker whose arm falls off, but that's just the gimmick of having these figures with rubber clothing that came out really good. It's just, that's the selling point for this. And I'm really glad to have these figures. But yeah, that's pretty much all for this video. If you like this new form of video where I'm doing a bunch of more editing than usual and you see my face, let me know. If you want to see more stuff like this, also let me know. And I will see you guys in the next review. How am I going to do this? Wow.